Hello guys from Plant Reviews. Today 2nd of June, late spring, and I'll talk now about the tree lupin or bush lupin, the Lupinus arboreus. This plant is called tree lupin in the UK, however it's called as bush lupin in the USA, where this plant actually is from. Specifically from California, and is actually a more appropriate name because it really is not really a tree. There's only one species in the genus Lupinus to be an actual tree, and this one is more properly a shrub. A shrub rather than a tree. However, this plant belongs to the family Fabaceae, so in the pea family, and the genus Lupinus obviously in the subgenus Platycarpos, and the species is the Lupinus arboreus. Arboreus comes from the Latin word from arbor, means indeed tree, as the English name would suggest, as a tree lupin. This shrub is native to California, however, where it's widely distributed among coastal sage scrub and sand dunes. So it's a plant indeed that can be planted near the coast, and is perfectly fine with that. Doesn't is okay also with salt winds that can bring some salt. Is absolutely one of the best plants you can grow if you ever live in a coastal area. This plant is an evergreen shrub, and these can grow up to 2 meters, about 7 foot tall, even if usually it is shorter at about 1 meter, 1 and a half, so about 3 to 5 foot tall. This plant is hardy in the UK, can tolerate down to minus 12 degrees. The only drawback is that if you plant this plant in the garden, you have to take into account that the plant is not very long-lived, lives about 7 years. So what I would suggest, as I'm doing, is planting these plants in pots, as you can see. So you can, when the plant dies, you can replace it easily without the need, obviously, to take a whole shrub out of the garden. This is also the advantage that this you have to take into account that this lupin, like many other lupins, can be quite invasive. So if you have it in a pot, actually will not spread around through seeds, otherwise, and you will might end up with tree lupins everywhere in your garden. This plant has gray-green palmate leaves, as you can see, and they have their compound leaves. They have leaflets, usually between 5 to 12 leaflets, and this one in particular has 9 leaflets indeed. It is the color of the leaves is very pleasant, and it is silky because they are sparsely covered with the fine hair, as you can see in the video. Hopefully, is the camera is able to focus. Yeah, there is also very nice insects, bright green insect going around. What a beauty. This plant blooms in spring, so between the end of May up to September, therefore it's quite a long blooming season. The blooms obviously are bigger. The older the plant, the bigger is the bloom. Last year I planted this plant from seeds. I bought them from Chiltern Seeds. Out of 6 seeds, only 1 yellow tree lupin survived, and the other ones were either didn't germinate or were eaten by slugs, and 3 out of 6 as well, purple lupins, survived. Last year only the yellow lupin bloomed with very short flowers, about the size of the purple variety I have here. I couldn't detect any smell, while the purple didn't even bother to flower. This year, actually, the purple lupin bloomed before the yellow lupin. It was already in bloom at the end of April. The yellow lupin started in mid-May, and luckily this year I was able to smell the beautiful fragrance that this lupin is famous about. Only from the yellow lupin, unfortunately. However, as I said, last year also the yellow lupin bloomed the same plant and I couldn't detect any fragrance. So as in some other cases, like for example some orchids are the same, the plants don't really have any perfume the first year they bloom when they are young, and then in subsequent years obviously the flower shape and the flower size improves as well as the fragrance starts developing. The flower spikes of the yellow lupin this year are much bigger than last year because, as I said, last year it had only 2 flowers about the same size of the purple lupin here, so not much of a show. Instead, you can see this year is absolutely beautiful. The flowers are the typical pea-like flower. They are actually very similar to the Lupinus polyphyllus, the wild lupin, and in general to the ornamental lupins, even if they are more sparse. As you can see, they are not so dense and tightly packed as in the ornamental lupin, like in the Russell series or in the Gallery series. It's obviously another species, the Lupinus polyphyllus, and hybrids. However, it is still a very nice show. You can see how beautiful are the racemes and with how many flowers anyway. The plants are still young. They're about 1 year old, so it is not still a huge show. However, this plant, when it reaches full size, is absolutely covered in panicles of flowers, and the fragrance obviously is way stronger. And even this year from the yellow lupin I can detect a very nice fragrance. It is a very fresh fragrance. It really smells like clean washed clothes when you take them out of the washing machine, but the fragrance is just absolutely incredible and so fresh that in some is even more appreciated than it could be in other season. The flower color is variable. The most common variety is the yellow variety here. However, there's another variety very popular that is purple. Like this one, there is a white variety, the Snow Queen, and there is also a cream variety. I'm not too sure if differently colored varieties have different fragrance. However, as I told you, this year I'm able to detect clearly the fragrance from the yellow lupin, not so much from the purple lupin. I will see next year if there is any variation like it happened with the yellow lupin from last year to this year. The plant is quite invasive as many lupins, so it has escaped cultivation because it has been widely used as an ornamental plant both in North America and in other countries, and it invaded several areas in the Pacific coast of the North America, going up to British Columbia in Canada, as well in the eastern part of North America, and also Europe, Australia, New Zealand, and the southern part of South America. On the other hand, this plant has been proven very useful because it binds sand dunes, so it helps to avoid erosions in these areas. Also, this plant is so robust that has been seen growing in cracks on vertical stone wall, and that's another thing to get to consider when you plant this plant. It's a very sharp drainage. Really, being a plant that live in coastal areas and sand dunes really doesn't like to get waterlogged. Cultivation conditions are quite far from the wild lupin I have here, the Lupinus polyphyllus, that if I don't water it, it's in a pot as well. If I don't water it for 2 days, basically, I see the leaves drooping and the flowers as well. This plant instead can tolerate droughts quite easily. Obviously, avoid complete prolonged droughts. However, that's a plant that is much more resilient to droughts than the Lupinus polyphyllus. The location for this plant obviously is the sunniest spot in the garden you can get. Really enjoys full sun as well as well-drained soil. I'm sorry to repeat it, but it is a really important characteristic of the compost for this plant. Also, this plant can grow already during the first year up to 6 foot tall. It didn't grow quite as much yet because I have it in about 2 liter pot at the moment. I am repotting them soon because I really would like for next year to have a huge and glorious full bloom of the purple and the yellow lupin, and hopefully an even stronger fragrance. And this plant, however, if you need it to prune it, can tolerate pruning, can tolerate even a hard pruning without any problems, because maybe you don't have a 2 meters by 2 meters space for this plant in your garden. Don't worry, you can cut it pretty hardly, and the plant will take that without suffering. Propagation can be done with basal cuttings, but also by seeds. So it's ideal to collect the seeds and obviously plant them if you want to increase your stock, or save them, obviously, because as I said, the plant is not very long-lived, and I love the color, and the fragrance is absolutely stunning. Definitely is a plant I want to keep over the years. When you sow the seeds, ideally you should soak them about 24 hours before planting them. In this way you stimulate the water imbibition in the seed, so it germinates easier. The plant is great for back borders and with other often total plant. However, as I said, it is a very short lived, so really if you don't want to dig to pot in and dig out the plants every few years, I'd rather recommend a pot, a big pot instead. About this plant, what else I can say? This is absolutely one of my favorite plants in the garden. I fell in love with this plant when I saw it first in a nursery in a pot. However, the pot was quite big and I didn't have enough space in the car to bring it with me, so I decided the year after to get some seeds, and I'm really glad I did, because the result was absolutely stunning. I'm only sorry that only one plant of the yellow form was able to grow, but hopefully I will get some seeds, a few seeds from this plant to increase my stock. And the only problem I can tell about this plant, like with many other lupins, are aphids. Aphids are absolutely a nightmare for this plant, so you have to be sure to treat them quite often. And I have a few areas with aphids, and I can show you some here. Yeah, on this bloom there is actually an aphid crawling. Actually there's a few aphids, as you can see. I'll try to focus better. Yeah, you can see how many aphids. And another problem with this plant is that snails absolutely love this plant. You can see how many leaves I have munched by snails. So you have to remember to treat the plant against aphids and with slug pellets, otherwise they will just eat it. The same problem as many other lupins. So I have to say I have my polyphyllus as well. There are, I think snails ate half of the Lupinus polyphyllus I planted, and all the Lupinus notecaensis as well, and some of my perennis, some of my tree lupins as well. So two big pests to face with these plants are snails and aphids. Hope you enjoyed the video, if you, and the other videos, hopefully, if you have seen some other. And I hope to see you next time. If you would like to support the channel, just would be great if you can please subscribe. And if you have any questions, just let me know, and I will try to answer as soon as possible. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time. Bye.